Ladies and gentlemen, brothers and sisters, friends and fellow seekers of purpose, thank you for gathering here today. What I am about to share is not just an idea, but a truth many have lived, a process many are walking through right now, and a promise that holds hope for those who feel like they're in the midst of silence, pain, or deep uncertainty. Before God gives you something big, something truly meaningful, something that will shift your life and possibly others' lives forever, something will happen. It is not always visible to others. It is not always glorious. It is rarely easy, but it is necessary. Because before God elevates you, He prepares you. Before He promotes, He purifies. Before He places you where you are meant to be, He prunes away all that cannot go with you. This process often begins in a place of breaking, not to destroy you, but to reveal you. You see, before anything big happens, God often allows a shaking, a stripping, or a stretching. He removes the comforts you once depended on. He distances you from people or places you thought were permanent. He changes the plans you made, sometimes so suddenly and so completely that you're left asking, why? Or even, God, where are you? The reason for this is rooted in love, because God loves you too much to give you something big that your character is not yet ready to carry. A blessing that you are not prepared for can become a burden. A platform that you are not spiritually stable enough to stand on can crush you. And so God works deeply within before He works visibly through. If you've ever felt like you've been in a wilderness season, you are not alone. The wilderness is God's workshop. Moses was in the wilderness for 40 years before he led a nation. David was tending sheep, forgotten by others before he ever held a crown. Joseph was in a prison, wrongly accused before he was in a palace. And even Jesus, before beginning his public ministry, was led by the Spirit into the wilderness, where he fasted and was tempted. Why? Because before anything big, there is a process of preparation, and that preparation often feels like isolation, rejection, or delay, but it is not punishment. It is protection. It is purpose. God will often strip away your dependence on things or people so that your dependence is solely on Him. He will close doors you begged to stay open because what's on the other side does not align with your destiny. He will bring you to the end of yourself where your strength runs out so you can finally see what His strength looks like. Because when you step into the big thing, you must know how to walk with Him, not just for the blessings, but through the battles. Sometimes the something big isn't just an opportunity, it's a responsibility. It's influence, it's leadership, it's impact. And with that comes weight. So God uses the seasons before that to build your spiritual muscles, your discernment, your patience, and your humility. He lets you be misunderstood, so you learn to be confident in what He told you. He lets you wait, so you develop endurance. He lets you feel hidden, so your motives are purified. Before God gives you something big, there's often a season of testing. And those tests don't look like exams, they look like life. Will you still be faithful when it's not convenient? Will you still serve when no one is watching? Will you still believe when everything tells you it's impossible? Will you hold on when letting go would be easier? Those questions are not meant to trap you. They're invitations into maturity. Because the greater the calling, the deeper the cutting. You cannot carry the weight of your future while still holding on to the wounds, habits, or mindsets of your past. There may be nights when you cry yourself to sleep, mornings when you feel like giving up, days when you wonder if God has forgotten you, but He hasn't. In fact, the very tension you're experiencing is a sign that He is near, not absent. He is forming something in you that cannot be seen yet, but will be revealed in time. And when it comes, it will be undeniable that it was Him all along. Sometimes before God gives you something big, He allows you to be broken so your pride can't follow you. He humbles you not to humiliate you, but to heal you. He silences the noise around you so you can finally hear His voice clearly. He allows disappointments so you stop chasing what is good and wait for what is God. You might feel like you're going backwards, like doors are closing, like people are leaving, but often that's God setting the stage. He clears out the clutter before he builds something holy. He removes the distractions before he gives direction. He ends certain chapters so you'll stop rereading them and step into the new story he's writing. There is no wasted waiting in God's timing. He's not delaying to punish you. He's preparing to surprise you. But he's more interested in your transformation than your timeline. He's shaping who you are so you can sustain what he gives. Because when the big thing arrives, it's not the end, it's just the beginning. So if you're walking through a hard season, I encourage you, don't despise it. Don't rush it. Don't compare it. Instead, surrender to it. Ask God what he's trying to show you, not just what you want him to give you. The blessing is not just in the result, it's in the becoming. Who you are becoming in this process is more valuable than anything you'll receive at the end. The promotion may be public, but the preparation is always private, and God does his best work in hidden places, when no one is applauding, when no one is validating, when no one is even watching. That's where God forms warriors. That's where he crafts leaders. That's where he refines purpose. Don't let discouragement drown your faith. The silence of God is not the absence of God. Sometimes when a teacher gives a test, they're silent, but they're still in the room. God may be quiet, but he's close. He may be hidden, but he's not distant. He's watching how you respond to the waiting, the hurt, the delays, not because he's judging you, but because he's strengthening you. Before God gives you something big, he may let your plans fall apart so his purpose can fall into place. He may remove people who can't go where you're headed. He may allow storms to hit so you learn to trust in his anchor, not your boat. But in every loss, there's a lesson. In every delay, a design. In every hardship, an invitation to deeper dependence. And when the time is right, his time, not yours, he will open doors no man can shut. He will align resources, people, and moments in a way only he can. And when it comes, you'll look back on every tear, every prayer, every night you almost gave up, and you'll see it wasn't wasted. It was preparation. Don't chase the big thing. Chase the one who holds it. Because when you have him, you already have everything. And when he decides to entrust you with more, you'll be ready, not because you're perfect, but because you're proven. So stand firm, stay faithful, keep praying, keep believing, keep showing up even when it's hard, keep walking even when you feel like crawling. You're not behind, you're being built. Remember, before God gives you something big, something happens, a transformation, a deep, often quiet work that shifts you from who you were into who you are called to be. And when that moment comes, when the opportunity opens, when the dream manifests, when the prayers are answered, you'll realize it wasn't just about the destination, it was about who you became on the way there. Before God gives you something big, he often breaks down what is not meant to go with you. This could involve stripping away false dependencies, breaking pride, or allowing painful situations not to harm you, but to prepare and purify your heart. The breaking is not a punishment, but a process. It's not about destroying you, it's about refining you. You see, we all carry things, mindsets, attitudes, relationships, habits, that feel like part of us, but in God's eyes, they are a weight that cannot go where we are headed. We become attached to comfort, approval, familiarity, and control. And sometimes the very things we are clinging to with both hands are the same things holding us back from the life God wants to give us. So before that something big enters your life, there's often a divine interruption, a moment or season when everything starts to unravel. Your plans fall apart, relationships shift, your confidence is shaken. Doors you thought would open stay shut. It feels like you're losing everything, but in reality, God is removing what no longer serves your purpose. He is creating space, not just in your life, but in your soul, for something greater. That space, however, doesn't feel like a gift at first. It feels like pain. It feels like confusion. It feels like God is far away, but He is closer than ever. He is doing a deeper work, one that others might not see, but you feel every day. In the breaking, God is dealing with your foundation. He's asking, what are you really standing on? Is your security built on the approval of others? Is your peace tied to your circumstances? Is your joy based on what you can control? These are the questions the breaking confronts, because the bigger the blessing, the stronger the foundation needs to be. If God placed something massive on a cracked surface, it would collapse under the weight. And so He breaks what's brittle in you before He builds what's beautiful through you. This breaking season may not make sense to your mind, but it will mature your spirit. You learn things in breaking seasons that success could never teach. You learn humility. You learn to pray in ways you never did before. You learn to listen to God's whisper instead of chasing noise. You discover how strong you actually are, not because of your willpower, but because you're being held up by a power greater than you. The breaking becomes a training ground, a classroom, a spiritual surgery where what's infected gets cut out, not to kill you, but to save you. Sometimes the breaking touches areas you thought were already healed. Old wounds get exposed. Fears rise to the surface. Insecurities you buried long ago come out of hiding. And you wonder why this is happening now, especially when you feel like you've already done the work. But God is not interested in surface level healing. He goes deep, because the higher the calling, the deeper the healing required. You cannot carry something big with unhealed wounds. You cannot lead others if you're still secretly bleeding. So He breaks you not to expose you to others, but to expose you to yourself so you can be healed at the root. And when He breaks your pride, it stings. When He strips you of control, it's disorienting. When He shows you that your strength isn't enough, it humbles you. But all of this is grace. It's His mercy in motion. Because what God is preparing for you is too important to build on ego. It's too valuable to give to someone who hasn't been purified in the fire. So yes, it may feel like everything is falling apart, but in reality, everything is falling into place. Not your place. His place, His will, His time, His purpose. And one day, when the breaking is over and you step into what God promised, you'll see why it had to happen the way it did. You'll thank Him not just for the blessing, but for the breaking. Because the breaking is what made room in your heart to carry the weight of the blessing with humility, gratitude, and unwavering faith. The breaking didn't destroy you, it built you. God frequently prepares people in hidden seasons, times of silence, solitude, or even rejection, like Moses in the wilderness or David in the fields. These quiet seasons are where God molds your character and trains you to hear His voice more clearly. These are not the moments we would choose for ourselves. Most of us want progress to be loud, public, and filled with affirmation. We want to feel seen, validated, and understood. But God often chooses the opposite route. He leads us into isolation, not because He is distant, but because He wants to draw us closer. In the silence, distractions are stripped away. The noise of the world fades. The applause of people disappears. You're left alone, not to suffer, but to listen, to learn, to be refined. It is in these quiet, often lonely seasons where your spiritual ears become tuned. You begin to distinguish between your thoughts, others' opinions, and God's voice. And while it may feel like nothing is happening externally, everything is changing internally. The season of isolation can feel like abandonment. You look around and realize people who used to walk with you are no longer present. Opportunities that once came easily now seem distant. You may feel like you're invisible, like you're being overlooked. But isolation is not rejection, it's redirection. It's a sacred invitation to go deeper, to become stronger, to develop roots that can sustain future growth. Trees don't grow tall without first growing deep, and in the same way, before God elevates you, he grounds you. Think of David, the shepherd boy. Before he became king, he spent years in the fields alone with sheep, practicing faithfulness in obscurity. No audience, no crown, no recognition, just him, the sheep, and God. It was there that he learned how to worship, how to lead, how to protect, and how to trust. It was in the quiet place that he became the man who could later face Goliath. His public victories were rooted in private devotion, and the same is true for anyone who is being prepared by God. Moses spent 40 years in the desert before returning to lead Israel out of Egypt. The man who once lived in a palace was now tending sheep in the wilderness. From the outside, it looked like failure, like God had abandoned him. But in truth, it was part of the plan. That desert became the place of encounter. It was in the silence that Moses met God at the burning bush. That quiet season didn't disqualify him, it equipped him. He had to be removed from the noise of Egypt to hear the call of heaven. These seasons of silence aren't just for resting, they're for recalibrating. You begin to question things not out of doubt, but out of desire for truth. What am I really called to do? Who am I becoming? What is God saying to me? These are questions that don't get answered in the rush of life, but in the stillness of isolation. And when you stop filling every moment with noise and activity, you begin to sense God's whisper. You realize that his presence is not always loud. It's gentle, steady, and often revealed in stillness. Rejection can also be a part of this season. People may walk away. Relationships may fall apart. Circles that once embraced you might now feel cold or distant, and it hurts. But what feels like rejection is often God's way of protecting your purpose. Not everyone can go where you're going. Not every connection is meant to last forever. Sometimes God allows rejection to make sure you depend on him and not on human approval. He uses the silence to remove the idols we didn't even know we had, status, recognition, or relationships that became substitutes for him. And though it may be painful, isolation becomes sacred when you realize God is there with you. In fact, you often experience his presence more deeply in the silence than you ever did in the crowd. He reveals himself in ways you couldn't have seen when you were busy. He begins to speak to your identity, not your performance. He reminds you that your worth is not in what you do, but in who you are, his child, his beloved. Eventually, the season of silence lifts. The solitude ends, and when it does, you come out of it not weaker, but stronger, not bitter, but wiser. You walk out with clarity, with a heart that's been softened and a faith that's been stretched. You come out carrying something that could not have been formed in the noise, a deeper understanding of God's voice, a trust that has been tested, and a character that's been shaped by his hand. The world may not have seen what God was doing in that quiet season, but when the time is right, what he's been preparing will be revealed. Before the blessing comes, there are tests. These aren't academic, they're tests of obedience, patience, faith, and integrity. God wants to see how you respond when no one's watching, when things don't go your way, or when you're forced to wait. These tests aren't random or cruel. They are purposeful and precise. They are designed not to expose your weaknesses to the world, but to reveal them to you so that you and God can deal with them before you step into what's next. God is not interested in simply giving you something. He's far more interested in building something within you. These tests often come disguised as everyday situations. They don't arrive with flashing lights or bold warnings. They show up as delayed answers to prayers, unexpected challenges, difficult people, or seemingly unfair circumstances. It's in those moments that your heart is examined. Will you still trust God when you don't understand? Will you still trust God when you don't understand? Will you stay the course when everything in you wants to quit? These questions define the testing season. And your responses reveal whether your faith is built on feelings or on the unshakable foundation of who God is. Obedience is often tested when you're given a clear direction that doesn't seem to make sense. God may ask you to stay when you want to leave, or to leave when everything looks comfortable. He may prompt you to be generous when resources are tight, or to forgive when your pride wants revenge. These are not easy commands, but they are critical for growth. Every act of obedience trains your heart to trust, and every delay in understanding stretches your faith. When you obey God in small things, you prove to Him and to yourself that you can be trusted with more. Patience is another test, and perhaps one of the hardest. Waiting is rarely fun, and in our fast-paced culture, we've been conditioned to believe that waiting is a waste. But in God's kingdom, waiting is a workshop. It's where He develops endurance, molds character, and deepens reliance. During long seasons of waiting, you may be tempted to rush ahead, to settle for less, or to try to make things happen on your own. But true faith holds steady. It says, even if I don't see it yet, I will not move unless God moves with me. Patience is not passive. It's an active form of trust that honors God's timing above your own. Integrity is often tested in moments no one else sees. How do you act when there's no audience? What do you choose when you know you won't get caught? Do you honor your commitments, keep your word, and speak the truth even when it costs you? These private choices matter deeply. God watches the inner life more closely than the outer performance, because when you stand in a bigger place, in front of more people, or with greater influence, what's inside you will eventually come out. He uses the testing season to make sure what's inside is solid. Your motives, too, are constantly being tested. Why do you want the blessing? Is it to be seen, to prove yourself, to be admired, or is it to serve, to glorify God, and to make a difference beyond yourself? God cares as much about why you want something as He does about what you want. Motives matter because they determine how you'll steward the blessing once it arrives. If your heart is in the wrong place, the very thing you prayed for could become a source of pride or destruction. But when your motives are pure, refined through the fire of testing, you are prepared to carry the blessing with humility and purpose. These tests are not just about passing or failing. They are about shaping. They are about revealing what still needs healing. And they are about building something stronger within you than what lies ahead of you. Every disappointment, every delay, every detour is a divine setup for spiritual development. You may feel like God is holding back, but He's really holding you up so that when the blessing comes, you won't crumble under it. When God tests your faith and motives, He's giving you a chance to grow before He gives you the opportunity to go. He's not just looking for readiness on the outside, but wholeness on the inside. And when you look back one day, after the doors have opened and the promises have been fulfilled, you'll realize it wasn't just the blessing that changed your life. It was the testing that prepared your soul. Sometimes God will ask you to let go of people, places, or habits that are not aligned with your calling. Pruning is painful but necessary. God makes room for what's coming by removing what's no longer needed. This process is never easy, and it rarely makes sense in the moment. You may look around and see things falling away that once felt permanent, relationships you thought would last a lifetime, dreams you held tightly to, or routines that once brought you comfort. It can feel like loss, like failure, even like abandonment. But pruning is not punishment, it is preparation. In the same way, a gardener trims back a tree so it can grow stronger and bear more fruit. God trims areas of our lives that have either stopped producing or have begun to drain us spiritually. It's not because He wants to hurt us. It's because He sees what we cannot. He knows what lies ahead. He knows the weight of what's coming. And He also knows what will hinder us if it remains. Some connections may be comfortable, but they are not covenant. Some habits may bring temporary relief, but they limit long-term growth. And some paths may be familiar, but they lead nowhere. Letting go is often one of the hardest acts of obedience. It requires trust in what we cannot yet see. It demands that we release our grip on what is in our hands to make room for what God wants to place there instead. But when we refuse to let go, we risk becoming stuck, spiritually stagnant, emotionally drained, or even bitter toward the very process designed to free us. God doesn't prune to harm. He prunes to heal, to protect, and to prepare. He sees the fruit that your life is meant to bear, and He's willing to remove whatever is holding it back. There will be moments when God asks you to walk away from relationships that are no longer helping you grow, not because the people are bad, but because the season has shifted. They were part of your journey for a time, but not every companion is meant to walk with you forever. As painful as it is, clinging to relationships out of loyalty or fear can cause more harm than good. If God removes someone from your life, it's not because He wants you to be alone. It's because He's making space for the right voices, the right alignment, the right people who will speak life into the next season. Sometimes it's not people, but places. God may lead you out of a job, a city, a ministry, or an environment that once felt like home. You may not understand why. You might feel like you're walking away from something good, but God doesn't just move you for change's sake. He moves you for transformation's sake. If the place no longer aligns with your growth, your purpose, or your identity in Him, He will lead you somewhere new. And in the transition, it may feel like you've lost direction, but you're actually being positioned for destiny. Habits, too, are part of the pruning process. God may begin to convict you about how you spend your time, what you consume, or how you speak. He may highlight patterns that seem small but are silently holding you back, habits that dull your spirit, weaken your focus, or create cycles of guilt and regret. Pruning these habits isn't about perfection. It's about alignment. God is aligning your actions with your calling so that when the blessing arrives, you'll be ready to steward it with clarity and strength. The pruning process is not a one-time event. It happens again and again as we grow. Each new level of responsibility or influence requires fresh obedience, deeper surrender, and more focused alignment. What worked in the last season may not work in the next. What was permissible before may now be a distraction. And so God continues to refine, to cut back, to remove, always with your future in mind. It takes courage to let go. It takes faith to trust that God knows what He's doing when He takes something or someone away. But pruning is a sign that He is actively involved in your life. He is not distant. He is the gardener, hands-on, shaping you for fruitfulness. And while the process may hurt, it is never wasted. What is cut back today will make room for greater growth tomorrow. When the pruning is complete, or at least when this part of it is, you will find that you are lighter, stronger, and more focused. What remains will be rooted, healthy, and capable of sustaining the blessing God is preparing to bring. You may not have chosen the pruning, but one day you'll thank God for it, because what He removed wasn't your future. It was what was standing in the way of it. God's delays are not rejections. They're divine redirections. His timing is perfect. If you're waiting, it's not because He's forgotten you, but because He's preparing the right moment, the right version of you, and the right environment for His plan. This is one of the hardest truths to embrace when you're in the middle of waiting. We live in a world that teaches us that if something doesn't happen quickly, it's probably not going to happen at all. But God doesn't operate on human timelines. He doesn't rush, and He doesn't delay without purpose. When He makes you wait, it's because something valuable is happening in the unseen. Waiting feels like being stuck. It can feel like God is silent, like your prayers are hitting the ceiling, or like everyone else is moving forward while you're standing still. But stillness in God's plan is not stagnation, it's strategy. In that waiting, He is developing qualities within you that can't be rushed. Patience, maturity, trust, endurance, and discernment. These aren't skills you read about. They are forged in the fires of waiting. They are built in the slow, quiet days where it seems like nothing is changing, but everything inside you is being refined. Sometimes we mistake delay for denial because we've misunderstood the nature of God's love. We think that if He truly cared, He'd give us what we asked for right now, but God's love is wiser than our desires. He sees what we cannot. He knows that timing is part of the blessing. A gift given too early can become a curse. A position taken too soon can destroy character. A relationship entered into prematurely can become a source of pain. So when God says not yet, it's not because He's holding out on you, it's because He's holding you together until the right time. One of the greatest challenges in waiting is managing your expectations. You begin with faith and excitement, but as the days turn into weeks and the weeks into months or even years, doubt starts to creep in. You begin to ask, did I hear God correctly? Is this still going to happen? Did I miss my opportunity? These questions are normal, but it's in these moments that you must remind yourself, delay is not denial. The promise still stands, even if the timeline shifts. God hasn't changed His mind. He's just working behind the scenes in ways you don't yet understand. There are also moments when you'll see others receive what you've been praying for. Their prayers get answered, their dreams take off, and it can feel like you've been left behind. This is another layer of the delay. A test of your contentment, your humility, and your trust. Can you celebrate others while waiting for your turn? Can you resist the urge to rush into something just to keep up? Can you trust that your story is unfolding exactly how it should, even if it doesn't look like anyone else's? Delayed seasons are often the most spiritually rich, even if they feel emotionally draining. These are the moments when you learn how to pray deeper, worship without conditions, and seek God not just for what He can give, but for who He is. You stop treating Him like a vending machine and start knowing Him as a Father. You learn to hold on to the promise even when your circumstances contradict it. That kind of faith cannot be developed in times of ease. It is born in the waiting room of life. The beauty of God's delays is that they come with purpose. He's not just preparing the blessing, He's preparing you to receive it. He's maturing your heart, stretching your capacity, and removing things that could sabotage your future. He is setting things in order, not just for a moment, but for a lifetime. His delays are layers of grace, even when they feel like disappointment. And when the appointed time comes, you will see why you had to wait. Everything will click, everything will align, the right door will open, and you'll walk through it knowing you were not late. You were right on time in God's eyes. In the end, what feels like delay now will be seen as divine timing later. You will look back and realize that every not yet was actually a just wait and see. You will understand that the waiting wasn't wasted. It was doing more in you than the blessing could have done by itself. So don't lose hope. Don't let delay convince you that you've been denied. If God promised it, He will fulfill it, not in your time, but in His. And when He does, it will be better than anything you imagine. What God gives isn't just about blessing. It's about stewardship. The big thing carries weight. That's why the journey beforehand is vital. He strengthens you to carry it, not just receive it. When we think about God giving us something big, whether that's a calling, a platform, a relationship, a position, or influence, we often focus on the joy, the fulfillment, or the visibility of it. But rarely do we stop to consider the weight that comes with it. The bigger the gift, the greater the responsibility it demands. And God, in His wisdom, does not just want to give you something to enjoy. He wants to give you something you are capable of carrying, managing, and using for His glory. The blessings of God are good, but they are also heavy. They require maturity, discipline, consistency, and an ongoing dependence on Him. A calling from God isn't just an exciting opportunity, it's a sacred trust. It involves pressure, decisions, and accountability. There are people who will be impacted by how you steward what He places in your hands. That's why the process before the promise is so important. God is not just preparing a blessing for you, He is preparing you for the blessing. The journey you walk before receiving something big is part of the training. Every struggle, every lesson, every closed door, every delay, it all shapes you into the kind of person who won't waste what is given or crumble under its pressure. God is not interested in giving you something that looks good from the outside but crushes you on the inside. So, He allows you to face tests that build character. He lets you go through seasons of growth that require humility and endurance. He teaches you how to manage small things first because faithfulness in little prepares you for much. Stewardship begins in obscurity. Before you're seen by many, God wants to see what you'll do when no one is watching. Will you pray when you're not in crisis? Will you give when it's not convenient? Will you serve even when no one applauds? These questions define whether you're ready for more. Because when God gives you something big, it's not just about what you gain. It's about how you use it, who it serves, and what legacy it leaves behind. Responsibility means you don't just get to enjoy the blessing. You also have to protect it, nurture it, and sometimes fight for it. If you're given influence, you must use it wisely. If you're given authority, you must wield it with grace and integrity. If you're given a voice, you must speak truth with love. These are not light things. That's why God develops your foundation first, because He knows the storms that will come once you're standing in the place He's prepared for you, and He wants you to be able to stand. Many people ask for big blessings without realizing what they're asking for. They want the result without the responsibility. But God won't give you something just because you want it. He gives it when He knows you're ready to handle it. And readiness is not about perfection. It's about submission. It's about being teachable, humble, and dependent on Him. It's about recognizing that whatever He gives, it ultimately belongs to Him. You are not the owner, you are the steward. And stewardship is ongoing. It doesn't stop the day the blessing arrives. If anything, that's when it truly begins. Once you're carrying something big, you must maintain your connection to God more than ever, because without Him, even the most beautiful gift can become overwhelming.